Puss in Boots. Short story.
El gato con botas. Cuento corto.
Once upon a time, there was a very poor miller who left his 3 sons by inheritance: a mill, a donkey and a cat. In the cast, the mill went to the eldest son, the donkey for the second and the cat for the youngest. The latter regretted his fate as soon as he learned what his part was. What will happen to me? My brothers will work together and make their fortune, but I only have 1 cat. The cat heard the words of his young master and determined to help him. He said, "Don't worry, my lord, I can be more useful and valuable than you think. I ask you to please give me a jacket and a pair of boots to walk through the bushes." Although the young master did not believe the cat's words, he gave him what he asked for, knowing that he was a very clever animal. According to his plan, the cat gathered some carrots and went to the forest to hunt rabbits. With his sack full of rabbits and his new boots, he headed towards the royal palace and managed to be received by the king. "Your Majesty, I am Puss in Boots, loyal servant of the Marquis of Carabas." This was the first name the cat came up with. "The Marquis wants to offer you these gifts." The rabbits pleased the king very much. The next day, Puss in Boots returned to the forest and caught a wild boar. Once again, he presented it to the king, as a gift from the Marquis of Carabas. For several weeks, Puss in Boots caught more animals to present as gifts to the king. The king was very pleased with the Marquis of Carabas. One day, the cat found out that the king was visiting the river in the company of his daughter, the princess, and he said to his master, "Do as I ask, my lord, go to the river and bathe in the right place. I'll take care of the rest." The young master paid attention to the cat. When the king's chariot passed by the river, the cat began to shout with all its might, "Help, help! The Marquis of Carabas is drowning." Remembering all the gifts that the Marquis had given him, the king ordered his guard to help the young man. As the supposed Marquis of Carabas was soaked and his clothes had been lost in the river's current, the king also ordered that he be dressed in the most elegant costume and invited him to go to the carriage. Inside the carriage was the princess, who immediately fell in love with the handsome and elegant Marquis of Carabas. The cat, delighted to see that his plan was beginning to work, went ahead of them. Finding some peasants cutting the grass in a huge field, he said, "Peasant gentlemen, if the king were to ask you to whom these lands belong, you must answer that they belong to the Marquis of Carabas. Do it and you will receive a great reward." When the king stopped to ask, the peasants answered in unison, "Your Majesty, these lands belong to my lord, the Marquis of Carabas." The cat, walking in front of the carriage, was saying the same thing to all the peasants he met. The king asked the same thing, and with each response from the peasants, he was more astonished at the wealth of the Marquis of Carabas. Finally, the ingenious cat reached the most majestic castle that had for owner and lord a horrifying and evil ogre. In fact, all the lands the king had passed through belonged to this castle. The cat knew very well who the ogre was and asked to speak to him. In order not to be rejected, he told the ogre that it was impossible for him to pass through his castle and not having the honor of showing his respects. The ogre, feeling flattered, allowed him to pass. "Sir, I have heard that you have the enviable gift of becoming any animal you wish," said the cat. "It's true," replied the ogre, "and to prove it I will turn into a lion." The cat was scared to have a lion so close. Yet he was determined to stick with his elaborate plan. When the ogre returned to its hideous form, the cat said, "Your abilities are extraordinary. But it would seem more extraordinary to me if you could become something as small as a mouse." "Of course I can," replied the ogre, somehow annoyed. When the ogre turned into a mouse, the cat caught it with a single claw and ate it. Hearing the carriage approach, the cat ran to the castle gates to welcome the king. Welcome to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas." "What, Mr. Marquis of Carabas?" exclaimed the king. "Does this castle also belong to you?" The king, dazzled by the enormous fortune of the Marquis of Carabas, gave his consent for him to marry the princess. That young man who was poor before had become a prince thanks to the cunning of a cat. The young man never forgot the favors of Puss in Boots and rewarded him with a cape, a hat and a new pair of boots. The end.